podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Factory of the Future. I'm here today with A.W. Schultz. I'm Alexandria Burek, and today we're going to be talking about the 5 manufacturing trends of 2025. These topics should not be new to those of you who are regularly tuning in to our show. For those of you who are new listeners, this is your cue to take a look back at the archives and dive deeper into some of these conversations and topics that we've had in the past that seem to be right on trend. So AW, what do you have for us in the top 5 trends of 2025 for manufacturing?
Okay, so this is a combination of a couple different sites that we looked at, researched on, and just some things that are just from popularity hitting the live wire quite a bit. The first one, number 5, is tariffs. Yeah. So, a lot of talk in the news about some of the tariffs that are being imposed, especially within China, Mexico, and Canada. Yeah. There was some stats that came out that the National Institute of Standards and Technologies expected 20% of the component materials and services in U.S. manufacturing industries are imported. So I can't say that I'm surprised by that, but it seems right, maybe even lower than what I thought.
I was going to say lower than what I would have expected. I would have expected we were importing 80% and only manufacturing 20%,
Yeah. And well, here's the other thing that's interesting is that it was back in 1990s, I believe. That's when the U.S. lost its crown as the world's leading manufacturer.
Also, when NAFTA was signed, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You think there's a correlation there? But I'll give you one guess who surpassed them.
I have not a clue.
Oh, it's China.
Yeah. Of course.
But yeah, they're leading the way on it. So that is one of the common trends that's coming forth within this 2025 year within manufacturing.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing that. So not only in the business that I work in, but in the consulting firm that I'm partnered with, we're seeing the tariffs as a cornerstone center. Can't have a conversation with our clients without having a conversation about tariffs. And actually, one of the things we're doing, and it's going to be, I don't want to spoil it, but it'll come up later here in the top 5 trends. But one of the things that we're trying to do to get ahead of this for our clients and just to stay ahead of the curve is looking at digital twin solutions that we can deploy or recommend or help to implement for our clients. So that way, if we wanted to see how turning a port off would affect the supply chain, we can do that. If we wanted to see what the downstream effects would be of sourcing our materials from a domestic versus a international standpoint, how that affects all of the different parts of the supply chain. So we're seeing it, and that's what we're trying to do to help our clients. And it also what I think we're doing it from our business standpoint, but I'm pretty isolated on that from where I sit and focus on trailers.
Do you think that the digital twins, because it's been around since, the theory's been around since like the 1960s, but with the advancements of AI, which is our number 4 topic,
sliding right in,
that it's planning more, it's having more popularity or seeing more uses or functions to it? Because I hear the digital twins a lot more than I did probably 4 or 5 years ago.
I think what it is, yes, you're correct in that. I think what it was from my take is the technology was there, but the infrastructure was not, unless it was some robust company. And that brings me back to our conversation that we had in a previous episode. I don't know which one it was, but about the maturity level of an organization with regards to its tech transformation. So I think so many companies were just not at a place where they were capable of turning on digital twin, that's something that we're thinking about from a consulting perspective, is like, how do we even know if our customers or clients are ready for this? You know, what are all the things that we need to do to get them kind of like battle ready for digital twin deployment? So that's something that we're looking at. And I think that's why it's taken so long to catch on. I think having the IoT, having the AI capabilities, the data that you need to collect anyway from the get-go to even make a formulated simulation, or you know, even to be able to make use of digital twin outside of kind of like the NASA example that we talked about when we were talking about digital twins on the show. That's what I see as it just, people weren't ready. And, you know, I bring it back to the digital transformation maturity levels. I just think so many companies were just not mature enough to even comprehend or consider a digital twin. I still think a lot of companies aren't quite there yet. And I think that's where a lot of opportunity exists for like people like me and you to help people get there. I think that's something that we're definitely competent and capable of doing, and kind of in a very methodical way, I would say. But
Yeah, I mean that's another reason I'm excited about when we the project that we're going to be working on is understanding that just because we have all the technology doesn't mean you should be using all the technologies.
Right.
There's maturity levels, and spending money that's not going to have any effect on, not going to affect any decision making, is a bad investment. There is a fact out there that it's believed by the end of 2025 that 89% of manufacturers will have some sort of planned or integration of AI within their organizations. I don't know. You think that's? I mean, it could be anything. It could be Gen AI. It can be other things that could be on it. But if you're not part of it, you're missing some stuff here.
Yeah, I was explaining that to I forget who I was even talking to. I talked to everybody about AI, and it's really funny because one of my friends, he builds data centers for like Google, for like Amazon. That's his job. He builds the data centers. And he's very skeptical about AI. He thinks it's going to bust in 5 years, which is just really interesting because he's like working with these people. He's like, I don't buy it. And I'm like, dude, that's kind of crazy if you think about it. Like, he doesn't buy it.
Easier.
No, it does make life easier. And I mean, this guy, he's very smart. He knows a lot about a lot of things. And like, he explained what AI even is. I think the NLM, which is something linguistic model, natural linguistic model, whatever it is. But he knows literally how AI works. So like, he's a very intelligent person. And it's really interesting to hear his thoughts that he doesn't think AI is going to be here for the long haul. And I was like, you're smart. You know more than me about a lot of things, but I don't know. I think AI is here to stay. So that's kind of my take on it. And I think like Mark Zuckerberg in his conversation, I think we talked about this at one point too, was talking about we're going to have coworkers that are AI bots. And I subscribe to that. I truly subscribe to that. I think with the workforce shortage that we talk about, I think with the computing power of AI, even if it's not for everything, there's definitely places that AI outshines a human being. And I think the humans who are pushing forward and have a knowledge and an understanding of how to work with AI in kind of harmony, kind of like we talk about for our Industry 4.0 workshop that we're getting towards and gearing up for. Those are the ones who are going to stand out. The people who are reluctant to use AI are going to get left behind.
Yeah, I agree.
I have to say it. All right, what do we got next? What are your thoughts also on what I shared? You have any differing opinions?
Just that, he must be somebody that likes to, ruffle the feathers at a cocktail party, because I would have to listen and say, please explain to me how AI would not be around in a couple of years.
Yeah, he's a devil's advocate for sure. He was on debate team, so if that tells you anything.
Oh, yeah. I wish I had those superpowers.
No.
Number 3, advanced robotics and smart factories.
Okay.
So building on your thought, according to McKinsey, there is they predict that having digital twins can reduce your downtime by up to 50%. and increase productivity between 20 and 30%.
Yeah.
Which is just basically saying if you're doing digital twins, you've got a predictive maintenance program, and that means you're following it. So just to say you have digital twins, okay, but you're reacting to it, you're believing in the data. That's me jumping on a box because I see this quite a bit where, again, technology and not doing anything with it.
Right.
So the next one is supply chain reshoring and diversification. And I don't know if this might play a role in the tariffs, but it's the idea of reshoring and attractive options for manufacturers. So moving to different locations, different countries where labor is less expensive.
Yeah.
I think automation really helps the U.S. market because we need well-skilled employees, and hint into what the next one's going to be about.
Yeah.
But in 2025, there's expected to be a renewed emphasis on reshoring. Largely due to the tariffs and President Trump's recent implementation of tariffs,
Yeah.
And the aluminum from China, which
Yeah.
I can't speak a whole lot into it other than it's a big decision to make.
Toxic or something. Yeah. I'm not surprised. I would say personally, we are seeing a lot of clients of ours reconsider, and I think we as an organization in terms of where I work are reconsidering our supply chain and our supplier base. There's a couple of different ways, supply chain and procurement strategies that people tend to deploy. In some cases, you want to. There's always this fine balance. I don't know how much procurement experience you've gotten to kind of have, but in my limited stint, there was this balance between volume discounts, so driving as much volume to one single supplier, but then enough to subsequent secondary and third suppliers, so that way we're not single source, because when you're single source, you're obviously exposed to a great potential of breakdown in your supply chain. Like if that one supplier has a natural disaster, if that one supplier has a regulatory issue, they can't manufacture your product, and you've got no other already qualified suppliers as backup who are also with a good relationship and willing to step up and eager to kind of increase their market share. You're pretty well exposed. I think the same concept is what we deployed when I was sourcing steel. So it's kind of crazy if you think about it. So when I was sourcing steel, we were sourcing from China, Mexico, US. And we were buying for one type, 2,000 tons of steel a month.
Oh, a month.
A month for one spec. And it wasn't enough. Even having participated in it for several months, I still can't comprehend the order of magnitude that is, Yeah. So that's something to think about, and I think that's part of the reason why, and it goes with that reshoring of okay, well, if they shut down the ports, what are we going to do? There was a Suez Canal. That was a real experience for some people, I'm sure. And I'm sure it gives people plenty of pause now going forward and thinking about how do we, if this were to come up again, how do we get around it? How do we protect ourselves from that? So what are you saying? What are you thinking about when you think of these things?
Reshoring. I question it. I question it because, and I do this because, yes, labor it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing smart factories, I see the U.S. as a very strong component, and it's not to go away. But I talk in other countries, and they struggle. They struggle because getting the components and shipping them out and moving things around is very difficult for them. And in the U.S., I mean, we are very, very fast at the stuff we do. Things happen really quick, and you and I are pretty much accustomed to it. We don't even see it happening anymore because it's just
we don't even think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and other places they're a lot slower. So
Yeah,
that's I don't see a lot of I don't see the smart factories going away in the US. I see labor is intensive labor. I see that possibly digressing it has been digressing over the last 30 years.
yeah. I think
And
that's a really key insight that you made, though, about the infrastructure and the speed at which we move things. I think that's a real competitive advantage people might be foregoing for the cheaper labor, like you're talking about. Like, what mix of could we eliminate some of that cheap labor with automation or robotics or something, is what you're saying, I think. And that's a really great distinction and idea.
yeah. I mean, I'm now accustomed to ordering on Amazon and wondering why it doesn't come that day.
Yeah, right, right.
All right. The next one is labor shortages.
Yes.
And we've talked about this a lot. This is part of some of the research I'm doing in it. And one of the reasons is here's the data. It's just 39% of manufacturers are currently they're compensating with technology. Which, no surprise to that. That's how you would compensate in the US. But one of the things that is the problem is the consistencies on having talent and building on top of that talent coming in. Several factors are affecting what is driving the all these job openings. One is the aging workforce. However, that's been a case for I remember reading about that back in the 1990s, and there's not a lot of baby boomers that are still occupying the majority of the jobs out there.
Yeah, it's blue collar jobs, right? Blue collar jobs for sure.
Yeah.
Because I think the boomers are sticking around in the white collar jobs. I'll speak very openly about that.
Yeah.
They don't seem too quick to exit.
Well, one of the things is a lot of the baby boomers of intimidation on the new technologies that are out there.
Yeah.
And I've seen that firsthand where they don't want any part of it. They've bid out another jobs and go do something else because they're just worried about the technologies and their liabilities for it.
Yeah.
So skill gaps. And then there's also the education focus. I mean, a lot of jobs require some kind of 4-year degree, even though what they probably need is something more vocational training or some kind of technical trainings.
Yeah, we've got to balance the scales balance the funnels, balance the direction of where we're sending our youth, and how we're mentoring them out of college or out of high school, even for that matter. And there was a comment I was going to make about the skills gap, but I can't recall it. So maybe it'll come to me before we jump on to the next.
Well, the last one is just staying ahead of an evolving manufacturing workspace. So you think about 2025. It's one of those years where global manufacturing industries, there's a strong focus on incorporating the technologies and enhancing efficiencies and safeties. And I'll add more is about that human-centric and sustainability is part of it also. The incorporation of AI. Some of the concepts that are coming forward is the ESG, right? And while the U.S. we're somewhat laxed on it, other countries are not. And these factories have to still obligate to what these other factors are going to. So even if it's not pushing us, it is still something that's concern for manufacturing leaders.
And that's something that we're seeing as well, just in terms of like customer driven, consumer driven, right? So if Nike is your biggest, shipper as a carrier, and they require certain sustainability reporting, carbon accounting, and ESG measures in order to be considered as a carrier to even bid on their loads, that's where some of these carriers and these other, I would say that's where the consumer really has the power, right? And so how did that happen? Well, consumers demanded Nike do something with ESG and sustainability. Nike now is pushing that downstream or upstream, whatever you want to call it, to their suppliers and their supply chain network. So now they're warehousing people. It's a probably trickle down effect, I would say, or trickle up effect or whatever. But when the consumer demands it, and I think that's even better, right? Like, governments are going to change. Generations are going to have their own ideas about things, but the people who are the consumer really has the opportunity to drive these behaviors and these changes. And I think that's empowering. And I think it just goes to show that all these little actions that we all take and make on a daily basis do have a pretty profound impact overall. And if we're making conscientious decisions as consumers, our businesses will fall in line and will be motivated to act on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's our list. That's some of the trends that we're seeing coming forth in 2025 in the factory of the future. And I don't know do you think this would be a conversation we would have had last year at this time, or would it be a little bit different? Certainly the tariffs
the tariffs just changed the whole landscape. I think that really was that really changed a lot. I think that the tariffs, I think underneath the tariffs or over the tariffs, might want to say, is the presidential election. I think we would be having vastly different, dependent on who got elected for the U.S. presidency. I think that really just drove a lot of the conversations in different directions than we would be having if it were alternative. So, I don't know. I'm excited about U.S. manufacturing. I'm excited about these developments and kind of having a more dynamic and advanced supply chain. I'm excited about, U.S. workers having more jobs. I think those are things to be excited about. I think those are things to be feeling good about. I just hope that also at the same time, we're not pendulum swinging too far in one direction to the point where we can't handle it. But back to your first fact of the day with the 20% imports. So, if we were already doing 80%, I feel like we're pretty well positioned. And your other point about the smart factories, which I thought was great, I think we are positioned to do that better than anybody else, really. Maybe the Germans would give us a run for their money because they're pretty efficient and effective. But but I think that's a really good point, and I'm excited about it. I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for us. I think that if you're a leader listening to this call, you might want to consider joining AW and I this fall. We're working on some pretty exciting stuff. We're going to be hosting a workshop here in the U.S. talking about all things tech and people and how to get to this great place called Industry 5.0.
Yeah, and showing how you can save money.
Yeah.
And make money.
Yeah.
But so I think anything else you want to add, Alexandria?
Nope, I'm clocking out of here.
Okay. Well, we are clocking out of here like finished goods. Thank you for joining Factory of the Future.
Yep.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.